I'm Adrienne Pedersen. Today on Upfront. The unfolding crisis in Ukraine, the Russian invasion intensifying this weekend.
I think it's clear by now that Putin isn't going for a minor incursion.
Congressman Mike Gallagher is here. Plus, Michael Gableman set to report to lawmakers this week. Racine Mayor Corey Mason responding to Gableman's calls to send him to jail. You would rather go to jail versus have this private meeting. And Reince Priebus, the former White House chief of staff and RNC chair, now pushing for Milwaukee to host the Republican National Convention. His new insight just minutes away.
Taking on the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with your host, Adrienne Pedersen.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. The unfolding crisis in Ukraine is intensifying this weekend, and so too are calls for the U.S. and White House to do more. The images from the Russian attack show the horror as Russian forces continue to close in. President Biden has announced a new round of sanctions against Russia, and more U.S. troops are deploying to Eastern Europe. Congressman Mike Gallagher is a member of the House Armed Services and Intelligence Committees. We talked on Friday. What is the latest intel you've received, and when is your next briefing?
Well, we had an unclassified briefing last night. We're not in session until Monday evening when we'll be able to gather in a classified space. But based on open source information, I think it's clear by now that Putin isn't going for a minor incursion. He's going for effective control of the whole country. He has, however, faced resistance in the north as he's launched from Belarus. Ukrainians are fighting. He's been able to break out in the south from Crimea. But Kyiv is in a very precarious position right now. And Ukrainians still need our help. Right now, Putin wants to turn this into a quick and relatively costless victory. So I think our task is to slow him down, to make this as painful as possible. And over the long term, turn this into a massive loss for him in the same way that the Soviets suffered a loss after their initial successful invasion of Afghanistan. We still have options. We just need the courage to exercise those options.
I do want to talk about those options here. First, let's talk about the U.S. approach. I want to play for you what President Biden said. Let's go ahead and play that.
Our forces are not and will not be engaged in the conflict with Russia in Ukraine. Our forces are not going to Europe to fight in Ukraine, but to defend our NATO allies and reassure those allies in the East. As I made crystal clear, the United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power.
The president there speaking on Thursday. How do you want to see U.S. forces get involved?
Well, first, I support the reinforcement of our commitment to Article 5 of NATO. And I understand why the president and others would be reluctant to deploy U.S. troops to Ukraine. But even if that's your goal, why would you proactively announce that? That undermines your deterrent position. You're broadcasting your limits to our enemy, and the president should never, in the midst of a crisis, take options off the table. And that is sadly what we've seen throughout this. The administration is wedded to this idea and this approach that the threat of sanctions alone, coupled with ineffectual hashtag diplomacy, is going to be enough to deter Putin. But Putin doesn't care about that. He's already priced in the economic costs, and he's certainly not going to be deterred because Jen Psaki mean tweets him, right? We need to put hard power in his path. And even if we're not going to deploy our own troops, we need to do a better job of sending javelins, stingers, and anti-tank mines to the Ukrainians, again, to bog Putin down. And over the long term, turn this into an embarrassing failure for him. I don't understand.
Is there a scenario that you want U.S. troops fighting in Ukraine?
Well, right now, again, as I've said from the start, the president shouldn't have taken it off the table. We had advisors in the country. Right now, given the rapidity with which Putin is taking over the country, I don't even know if it'd be logistically possible for us to get any troops there. One thing we can do, and one bipartisan thing I would support, is reinforcing NATO's Eastern Front, and in particular, the deployment of intermediate range ballistic missiles to NATO frontline states. That would cause Putin to get very nervous. So it may be too late to do anything on the ground in Ukraine, but we could do that. The other thing we could do is to use our naval assets in the region to challenge the Russians in both the Mediterranean Sea as well as the Black Sea, which we've been unable to do right now. But again, we should just get out of this process of telling our adversaries what we're not going to do, because it's undermining our ability to deter. And I fear that Ukraine could just be the first step in a broader strategy from the Kremlin to completely divide NATO and undermine a lot of our allies, in particular because they're so dependent on Russia for energy.
You're calling for Congress to immediately convene in an emergency session. You want to send arms to Ukrainians. How do you ensure that Russia wouldn't get a hold of those?
Well, we still have allies on the ground, and as we've seen, we've seen some brave Ukrainians willing to fight to the death in defense of their countries. And even in the worst case scenario, our allies could consolidate in the west of the country. But you're right, it's a very dangerous situation. And so beyond just arming the Ukrainians and beyond imposing actual real sanctions, and this is an important point. The sanctions the president announced yesterday, they were more tough than previous sanctions, but he still didn't go so far as to say we're going to kick the Russians off the SWIFT system. And there's been bipartisan calls to do that. And we really aren't targeting Russia's energy sector. And until you do that, you're not really having an impact. That's how Russians get energy into their economy, or get money into their economy, through the energy sector.
So earlier this week, former President Trump praised Putin's aggression as genius, calling him very savvy. What do you think of that?
Well, I disagree with any praise of Putin. I think Putin is a KGB thug. And since he's come to power, presidents from both parties have underestimated his ruthlessness and capacity for aggression. Now, and maybe this is what the former president was getting after, there's no question that he's outplayed the West in this crisis, but that should be a wake-up call for us to learn from that failure in a bipartisan fashion and deter him going forward.
Okay, Congressman Gallagher, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We've been documenting the dramatic escape from Ukraine for one family with ties to Wisconsin. Gemma Naderkach, her 8-year-old daughter and Ukrainian husband have safely arrived in Poland. Naderkach is a Wisconsin Army veteran. She and her daughter are U.S. citizens, but her husband needs a visa to come to the U.S.
There's no borders when it comes to nuclear weapons. There's no borders when it comes to missiles and things like that. So it's very scary. Just being this close to the border. So we just want to try to get all of this done as quickly as possible, and hopefully we can go to Wisconsin very soon.
Naderkach says her husband is scheduled to interview for a visa this week at the U.S. Embassy in Poland. Up next, Michael Gableman meets Wisconsin lawmakers, but he's first asking a judge to send several people to jail.